Good afternoon and welcome to the latest in our series of live careers webinars brought to you by the HOP portal, which is a website we hope that lots of young people and students, particularly those of you attending Hertfordshire schools and colleges, will be using. So on your screen at the moment, you can see the details of the website as well as our social media handles there. And HOP is a website that is there intended to share with you lots of careers information relevant for the jobs market in Hertfordshire. So it may well be something that you see in school or college. The purpose of these webinars is to give you the opportunity to hear directly from people who are involved in an industry that you want to find out more about. So today's webinar will be all about careers in the electrical industry. So you can see here what we're going to find out today, the things that we're going to be exploring. So we will be, once I've introduced our panelists, we'll be thinking about what is the electrical industry, what does it actually involve, what are the skills, knowledges and experiences that you might need to move into the industry and to do well into it, and what courses you should go on to help you realise those ambitions. So first of all, I'm going to introduce our panellists and they can talk about the wealth of experience and knowledge they have in the industry. Then I'll tell you a little bit more about how the webinar works and then we'll crack on with some questions. So good afternoon, Ruth Devine.
Good afternoon, Gareth. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Tell us a little bit about you.
So I am not an electrician, however, I employ nearly 60 electricians and I joined my dad's business 15 years ago. The company has grown from 2 people to a workforce of more than 60 today. He retired 4 years ago, so it's now my business and we work in Milton Keynes and the surrounding areas. So we do have some projects in and around Hertfordshire. So we employ electricians, designers, design apprentices, estimators, bidders, contract managers and project managers, a various range of roles, all based on the core electrician skill set to deliver projects locally for our customers, from new builds, building refurbishment, moving machines around, new power supplies, new lighting. So a very diverse range of projects and customers, from people like Cranford University, Milton Keynes Hospital. We've done work for Stevenage Borough Council, shopping centres, people's houses, so much variety. So that's the kind of brief background to me and my company, and I'll let you carry on with the panel.
Sure. So it'd be really interesting to explore in a little bit further, in a bit more detail, Ruth, as we go on through the webinar today, about what are the sorts of roles that you are looking to employ, and what are the qualities and the skills of the people that you do look to employ as well. Now, you said you weren't an electrician, but I know we've got a real life electrician here in Andy Pitton from North Arts College. So good afternoon, Andy.
Good afternoon.
And well, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I currently teach electrical installation, but previously I did 22 years on site. I started as an installer, worked my way up through inspection and testing, gravitated a bit towards the engineering side of things, ran my own company for 15 years, saw most sides of the industry, domestic, commercial and more light industrial than the real heavy end, but so I've got a very broad ranging experience in the field, and then for the last sort of 20 odd years I've been teaching it as well.
Fantastic. So you bring a real wealth of knowledge and experience to this this session, Andy. You can talk from personal experiences, and I'm sure you'll give some of the warts and all accounts of the industry. But as
there are a few tales I could tell, yes.
we'll very much look forward to hearing those. And then also from North Arts College, good afternoon, Julie King.
Hello. So I'm Julie King. I'm the head of construction here at North Hertfordshire College. We have a construction campus, a construction hub in Fulton Close in Stevenage, which is just by the leisure park and the train station. And as Andy said, we run electrical installation courses from level 1. We also run level 2, level 3, and we also have an apprenticeship offer, as well as evening courses for level 2 and level 3 electrical installations.
Good, thank you very much, Julie. So we'll unpack all of the things that you just said there in your introductions as we go through this webinar. So the format of this is for those of you that are watching live at the moment, so it's about 4:05 on Thursday afternoon. If you're watching live, you've got the benefit of being able to put your own questions directly to Ruth, Andy, or to Julie. So if there's anything specifically you want to know, either about things that they've said or things that you wanted to know in advance, or things that just popped into your mind now, you can do that. And the way that you do that, on your dashboard, you will have a questions tab. So on the questions tab, if you click on that, it opens up a text box, and in the text box, you type in your question. It won't be visible to anyone else except for me, and then I will forward that question to, well, probably today, we'll forward your questions to all three panelists, unless there's a really specific question you want to ask a specific person, and they'll be able to answer that question. And that's a great way for you to hear directly and get responses to the questions that you most want to know about. Of course, if you're watching this back, so you're not watching it live, so you're watching it on the channel on YouTube, then you won't be able to submit any questions that can be answered live, but you will be able to put any questions in the comments box, which will open up, and then we'll try and get a response to you from one of our panelists today. So please do get your questions in. It's a really, really good opportunity. We're obviously in a virtual world now. In other circumstances, we might be doing this in your school or college, and you'd actually be able to talk to Ruth, Andy, or Julie face to face. So please really do use the opportunity to ask those questions. Now, the first set of questions I want to ask, and so thank you, those of you that registered for this webinar, you had the opportunity to type in questions or things that you wanted to find out today. So we've tried to incorporate those within the questions that we're going to ask at the moment. So anything else you do come up with, please put them in there. So, well, I mean, Ruth, let me come to you first of all. When we say the electrical industry, are we just talking about electricians, or is it a little bit wider than that?
No, so I'm also chair of something called the Electrotechnical Partnership, Skills Partnership, and it's a very broad range of occupations in the industry, everything from electricians, data engineers, building controls engineers, building services engineers that cover some of the mechanical aspects as well, data integration, systems integration, and all of these roles, they include an element of core electrical knowledge. So the typical electrician test, publishes, approved routes, and that shows the journey from level 1, level 2, level 3, whether it's an apprenticeship, full-time study, whether you're an experienced worker, then requires assessment later on, which is obviously not relevant to the audience today, but there are routes, so everybody gets qualified to the same industry standard, and then that's then eligible for an ECS gold card or professional registration with the IET or another engineering institution, and it's all at the same level, and that all includes technical knowledge, practical knowledge, showing that you can demonstrate the right workplace behaviours in terms of installation quality and team working, and then an endpoint assessment, which is what you do at the end of your apprenticeship or the end of your MBQ or experienced worker assessment. So it's a structured path for an electrician, but there are other roles in the industry that need electrical knowledge and that an electrician can either move into or works alongside to deliver a project in a building.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I'll come to Julie. It seems like Andy's being heckled in the background at the moment.
Yeah, sorry about that. But
that's all right. That's all right. This is live broadcasting. This is what happens. Julie, just to try and sort of bust a bit of a myth, really. I was really interested that the students that have registered, and in fact, looking at the list of the names of the students that are on this call now, vast majority are actually female, but
which is good
to be quite a male-orientated industry. Is it something? Are there trends?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I, the majority of our students, we have about 400 full-time students here currently, and the majority of those at the moment are male, but we continuously try to encourage and promote and just educate females as to the opportunities for them in construction in general. But again, with electrical, it's another really important agenda. It's an important agenda to the construction industry across the board, with governing bodies such as the CITB, placing real emphasis on trying to attract females into our industries, because there are so many opportunities.
Sure. Okay. Well, Andy, let me come to you. What are the most enjoyable aspects of the role, as I suppose specifically as an electrician? What do you really enjoy about it? What would people really savour in the role?
I think a big part of it is really sort of no 2 days are the same, really. there is a large element of problem solving involved in the job. So, you have to apply, a certain amount of wit, understanding, knowledge on a fairly regular basis. And that, that's one of the reasons I sort of stuck around in the industry for so long, because of that kind of variety. There tends to be a very good camaraderie on site, so that's another aspect of it. Very often you've got a good team around you and good people to work with.
Mm-hmm.
The industry is huge. There's a massive amount of scope in it. So, should you wish, there's always somewhere to kind of move on to, and that's another aspect that personally I found enjoyable. Just being able to kind of structure my career and move on within it.
Sure.
But there are many things to enjoy.
And then, well, let me ask you the flip question then. So we said about getting the warts and all of the industry. What are the challenging aspects of the role that perhaps, particularly as a young person who wants to go into the industry, wouldn't be aware of? What do you think they should be aware of?
It's hard work. It is hard work. You be prepared to get dirty, roll your sleeves up, get in there. It depends a bit on where you go in the industry. You've got, I found myself fairly quickly, faced with having to calculate a lot of sort of site conditions, cable calculations, that kind of thing. And if you want to move on, if you want to move around, then you've got to be reasonably good at the maths. If you really want to kind of get on, you've got to be very good at the maths. That is one aspect of it. But having said that, you can earn a very reasonable living as an installing electrician. So it's mainly, I don't think a lot of people coming into the industry signing up, I don't think they appreciate how hard it can be. 12-hour days quite often. Well, I suppose that depends on the company you actually end up working for, but they can be long days, with a lot of kind of physical effort within it.
Of course.
But as a youngster, I found that very enjoyable too. So
I think as well, just if I can add, we constantly speak to our students about, and Andy's quite right, there can be long days, it can be early starts, but on the flip side of that, if you're a qualified electrician, the diversity of where that qualification can take you. We have people that go out and they're electricians on movie sets, or you can be working in someone's house, or you can be working for a company such as Ruth's. You can equally be appointed as electrical installations manager in a huge hotel chain. There's just such a diverse range. Once you've got those skills, you can go abroad, into the army, into all manner of places. So it's a really diverse industry. But as Andy said, you have to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
Yes, if I may, that reminds me of a story. I taught some years back on one of the short courses, bunch of lads that were employed by Thomas Cook to maintain their hotels, and they used to it was about 5 of them, and they just used to spend all year flying around the world. Great for a young man or a young woman. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you. Ruth, you wanted to come in and
I think the point was made about it depends on the kind of company you work for. So I think at the very beginning of my 15 years in this company, we were doing lots of long days. We were traveling around for work. Now most of our work is quite local. People might start at 7, but then they'll finish at 2 or 3. So we do have that work-life balance. I think if you work in a hospital or for a social housing company, then you are going to have quite regimented hours. It depends on what you're looking for. I think the industry is trying to introduce more flexibility as well to support women that might have children, or to make the industry a more inclusive place. So I think the culture's changing slightly, but there are companies that will obviously if you're quite small and you're chasing the work, you might have to work very long days. You might have to stay to get something done. If you've got a factory that's shut down and your distribution board's in bits and that needs to be running tomorrow, you're going to be there all night if necessary to get that up and running. So it takes time to train as well. You don't learn it in 5 weeks or a year. No. It does take time, and you have to learn from those around you. You have to be willing to learn from those around you that you might not necessarily agree with everything they say, but if they've been doing it for 10, 20 years, they know what they're doing and they've got experience to learn from. So I think sometimes we see young people come in initially, they think they know everything sometimes. So it's a kind of humbling that happens. And I think every good engineer has that humbling judgment where you might not have all the answers. Somebody else will. You can learn from them. You can learn from your trade body. You can learn from your professional institution. But you need to seek out new knowledge all the time, really, and be prepared to. You'll see things one day that you've never seen before. That happens all the time. Every building's different.
Yeah. One other question on this section before we move on to talking about some of the qualifications that you might need. I don't know whether any of you know exactly, but a ballpark figure is fine. What percentage of certified electricians are self-employed, i.e. they run their own business or they work for themselves, compared to being employed by a company such as SJD?
I don't think the data exists for electricians that I have up to date. I think there's about nearly 300,000 electricians with an ECS gold card, but we don't really have that data on whether they're employed or whether they're not. No. For the construction industry as a whole, there's about 2.7 million people and about a third are self-employed. So I think typically that it varies by region, it varies on the industry and the region as well. But yeah, it's around a third of individuals.
Yeah, I would have said about a third. Yeah.
Okay. I suppose the positive thing about that, those numbers and that data is that you've got possibilities to do both. So if you want to go and work for yourself and run your own electrical installation company, that is a possibility. But equally, there are so many opportunities, and you've referenced some earlier. But hotel chains. We've spoken about local authorities, housing associations. I mean, they're desperate for electricians, aren't they? So it's something we'll come on to demand in the future. But it's good to know that there's there's two different ways of getting in there and practicing.
Yeah, there is a bit of an industry drive for more direct employment. I think traditionally employers have tried to keep flexibility, so they've kept self-employed people, but I think the industry and government are recognising that to have skilled people, and not just to electrician standard, but onwards, you need to employ them and train them and invest in them. So employment is a good way forward.
Okay, well, let's think about how you actually become an electrician. So, I mean, first of all, I think I know the answer to this one. I'm going to ask you, Julie. To be an electrician and to earn money from it, do you have to be qualified?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
glad you said that.
Yeah, we don't want unqualified electricians.
No, absolutely, quite rightly so. Tell us a little bit about the courses that you offer at North Herts College. And I will just caveat this, because I know people are watching from various different parts of the county, and we've got 4 very good further education colleges in Hertfordshire that will offer similar courses. But tell us about the courses that you offer at North Herts College. Who are they aimed at? How long do they last? What will someone get out of them, Julie?
So in our daytime provision, we are aiming our courses primarily at school leavers. So where somebody has, the interest, we run level 1, level 2 and level 3 on a daytime provision. And each of those courses lasts for 1 year. So that's 35 academic weeks, September to the end of June, COVID permitting. And that timetable might cover 3 or 4 days a week, depending on whether the person has passed maths and English and what level they're studying at. Ideally, I mean, somebody can access level 1 electrical installation, and they don't really need, any formal qualifications, but that would be something that we would have a good chat to them about, and we would want them to have an interview with us, and we'd want to look at references and motivation and things like that. When we approach level 2, the level 2 course is slightly different. So the level 2 course forms the part of their electrical qualification. And we take them on, we prefer them to have maths and English, GCSE. I think that's a big step in the right direction. there is the possibility for school leavers to study maths and or English here with us, but we find at level 2 that if they've already got the maths and English qualifications behind them to a pass, that enables them to focus fully on their electrical studies with us. It's also advantageous if, for example, they have a physics qualification or science, and they've applied and demonstrated their competence with physics alongside maths. To go on to level 3 full-time in the day, as a daytime student, you must have passed the level 2 qualification. So that's a City and Guilds requirement, that's not us. So to access level 3 electrical installations, you must have the level 2. And then from there, we also have an apprenticeship division. So students can leave us after their first, their level 2 year or their level 3 year, and we can help and support with transferring them over to an apprenticeship position, where they then focus more out practically, demonstrating their practical competence in the workplace, with maybe just a day spent in college.
Sure. Okay. I mean, Ruth, just tell us how you as an employer fit into that system, specifically around the apprenticeships route.
Yeah, so the alternative is that you can be on an apprenticeship and then do your level 2 and 3 whilst you're in employment. So you go to your college or provider on day release or block release, and you're doing exactly the same knowledge. So it's level 2 and 3 technical knowledge, and then there's an element of either the MBQ or work-based learning. So we do both, and we also take mature candidates that have been out practicing in industry and maybe haven't necessarily achieved all the full qualifications, and then we'll kind of finish them off with an apprenticeship if they've got more than a year's worth of learning left, or we might do the experienced worker route. But typically we're taking people on normally at level 3 technical knowledge. We start doing industry placements of our local provider, and to see if people have that aptitude. It's a kind of try before you buy, because once you have an apprentice, it is a big investment, and typically after level 3, it's going to take you another 2 or 3 years in the workplace to get to that level that you can do your AM2. So we take a mixture. We take green, but that's quite hard, and taking a 16-year-old from school, they don't often have the employability skills an employer expects. So the college is a good option to go and build some knowledge and also build your employability skills. Understand that it is different from school. It's that good step between school and the workplace. And when you're ready, you can come into employment and take that next step to finish off, hone those practical skills, and also hone the behaviours that you need. So that team working, the listening, the paperwork side of it. Become useful and productive, and build up to that stage when then you are a fully qualified person and you can make choices about what you want to do next.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of things in there that I want to come back to, but I had a question that's been submitted. And by the way, I know there's a few people that just joined the webinar live in that last section. So if any questions you would like to ask to our panelists, click on the questions tab on your dashboard. That will open up a text box. You've got the opportunity to type your question in there, then it will be submitted. It's only visible to me, and then I can direct the question, as I'm going to do now with the question that's just come in. I think it's a really relevant time to ask it. So perhaps Julia, I'll give you first dibs on this one. How many years of training would it take? Now the question says to become self-employed, but let's just unpack that question. And how many years does it take to qualify on it? If you're thinking about a school leaver who's coming in as a 16-year-old, how long is it likely to be before they're qualified? And then we'll pick up the self-employed aspects after that.
So they definitely need their level 2 and their level 3, and then it's going on to an apprenticeship, as Ruth quite rightly pointed out, to complete, which culminates in the AM2. We generally say sort of 3-4 years from that level 2, yeah. And we also run the 18th edition, which is sort of, the icing on the cake. We are looking at running higher level HNC and more specific qualifications that are really good add-ons, really good bolt-ons, but you're looking at about a 4 year from start point.
Of course, but and if you're on an apprenticeship scheme, you're going to be earning money during that time as well. So it's not just 4 years of study. That's correct. Okay, thank you. That's a really good question. The person that submitted that question. Andy, we've heard Ruth spoken about and Julie spoken about the importance of English and maths. Can you just give some practical examples of where you use the sort of functional English and maths in the role, and why it's important as an electrician to have those skills?
Well, I mean, English in a sense, you've got to be able to communicate with the client. You've got to communicate with the team around you. As you progress, you very often have to write reports about the condition of electrical installations and work that may need to be done. If you are working for yourself, you've got to be able to produce invoices and things like, and quotations. So yeah, English definitely. I mean, mathematics, well, you know, again, if you want to move on from being just purely an installer, you've got to be able to do the calculations that mean what you are installing is safe. You know, there's a set of calculations known as cable calculations, which are the kind of mainstay of what, you know, an electrician does. You know, it's not just unwinding a bit of cable from a drum and threading it sort of through a wall or a ceiling. It's much more involved than that. Should you wish to kind of go that way, I mean, you know, if you're gonna go into diagnostic work, then there's quite a great deal of calculation involved in that. So yeah, very definitely, if you know, if a skilled electrician is what you wish to be, then without a doubt, maths and English. Yeah.
Sure. Look, just to reiterate, we're not talking about getting A-level English and maths here, but we're talking about a good level at, you know, at GCSE that allows you to access the course that you guys then teach at college.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm you know, yes. You know, I mean, if you really want to get into the izzy-wizzy electrical engineering side, then yeah, A-level maths and beyond. But no, I mean, a good basic GCSE will take you, you know, level will take you a long, long way.
And then, Andy, as a lecturer at the college, are there any other subjects? We mentioned physics earlier as being useful. I mean, how useful is physics, and which elements of physics are gonna help? And are there any other school subjects that you might find some of your better students have studied or learned?
Yeah, I mean, you know, from the physics standpoint, you know, if you look at the sort of what's in the room behind me, particularly on the ceiling, you've got some LED panels. Yeah, the air conditioning is a slightly different thing because they tend to be a bit more specialized. But I mean, if we just take the lighting panels, if you don't know how they work, if you don't know the sort of science behind them, you can't fix them. You know, you've got to be able to work out, you know, when you're troubleshooting, you've got to be able to work out from a scientific standpoint. I mean, not necessarily heavy science, but I mean, you know, a certain knowledge of science to be able to give yourself a, you know, starter if something's gone wrong, to be able to pinpoint, you know, where the fault actually is. Otherwise, you'd be fumbling around for days, and I mean, and that not a good thing. So yeah, I mean, the physics does give you the, you know, a pre-understanding of electricity, about how sort of the relationship between the positive and negative sides of a circuit, and all of that is really good prior knowledge. Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, anything extra to that? Well, yes. I mean, you know, one of the things that, I mean, in any trade, manual dexterity, you know, being able to use your hands effectively. So anything that, you know, teaches you how to do that better, and understanding materials, you know, material science, that, yes, I mean, again, it can give some very, very useful insights as to the, you know, what it is that we use and how to use it, you know. So yeah, those all that kind of thing.
Can I just jump in slightly? Also, IT, computer science, the way the industry is going, like digital workflows, modelling, 3D design, BIM, yeah, computer science and is a big one. I think jobs in the future will involve much more programming and integration with connected things on a network and other equipment. So the role of an electrician is changing from what it is now.
Yeah,
sure, particularly on the design side. Yeah.
Ruth, just going to change the question a little bit. We've spoken about the qualifications or the school subjects that you might need. What are the skills and qualities that you as an employer would look for in somebody when you're employing, particularly if they're quite young and it might be their first role in the industry?
We tend to think you can train all of the skills and knowledge and safety with enough time. It's that attitude really and aptitude, and we appreciate people are young and they can be shy. We actually kind of prefer that sometimes, somebody that's a bit overconfident, because they're the people that can make mistakes. If you make mistakes in electrical installation, it can catch fire, you can shock somebody, and I do not want to go to prison. So I'd rather somebody that's humble, maybe a bit introverted, I don't know, but you have all different types of people. That's the thing, it's such a wide industry. It doesn't really matter what your personality is like, but being able to listen, follow instructions, listen again, ask questions if need be, not do things that you think are unsafe, is a good aspect, and that communication is good and key. But you do have roles for all different types of people, and we have all different types of people working for us. So enthusiasm as well, knowing something about the industry, knowing something about what electricians do, asking questions, trying to get some virtual work experience at the moment, but just having that appetite, that stands out. And sometimes we've taken people on we didn't even have jobs for, because they put a handwritten letter in saying, this is really what I want to do. I'm trying. How can I get into it? And that enthusiasm does go a long way.
Yeah, okay, no, good answer. Julie, are there any experiences that someone could gain or try and gain before they start a college course that will help them understand a little bit more about the industry? Now, of course, we wouldn't want to encourage anyone to play with wires, or
No, definitely not.
certainly if you're unsupervised or you haven't got a competent person with you. But how can you gain that knowledge or understanding of what the role actually entails?
So I think what we find that we have students that quite often might have relatives or friends who maybe are in the industry, and asking questions, maybe doing a bit of shadowing. Work experience is often difficult to find, but especially in the last couple of years. But those kinds of things, sort of showing that extra enthusiasm that Ruth referred to, and going out and just sort of trying to sort of gain some knowledge for themselves firsthand is always, we can always see the advantages of that in our students that do access that. And we do try and help with those, we try and help with work placements. Where we have students that get offered work experience, we try wherever possible to sort of work that into their timetables and make sure that they can have that experience, because we know it's very complementary to what they're doing here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We are going to move the conversation on. So there's a couple more questions that have come in as well, and we'll definitely ask those. If you have any questions that you want to ask, if you're watching this live at the moment, this is your opportunity to have this direct interaction with someone who employs people, and a couple of people who would work with you if you were going to be studying this at college. So do keep those questions in. It's your opportunity to do that. Just wanted to come on the prospects for the electrical industry. So, I mean, really my question is, what's the demand for electricians? Are there, from a course perspective, Julie, how many applications will you get every year?
Oh my goodness, the electrical installation courses here are by far the most popular. I mean, we sort of plan for maybe 60 level 2s. I think we've already offered, or we're already looking at offering something like 70 odd places. Our level 1 course is double subscribed so far this year. So and the same with our evening provision. So Ruth mentioned earlier about adults or people that might want to retrain or upskill. We run evening courses for adults as well, and they're always hugely popular. So it's big. It is a very, very popular area.
Yeah. Ruth, we've spoken about the use of technology and the rise of technology. Is that going to automate the process, or are we always going to need human beings to carry out these roles?
I find it very difficult to see how you can have a robot electrician, given the kind of nature in different buildings and different types of installation methods. And I think you can get it in like big tunnels, they might throw some conduit in, but typically I think the role of an electrician is fairly safe, and it's not going to be automated. Some test research about 3 years ago said that we need an extra 15,000 electricians in the next 5 years on top of the replacement demand because of the ageing workforce and things like electric vehicle charging. And then CITB produced a report last week saying pretty much the same thing, about an extra 3,000 electricians per year are needed on top of what we're doing now. And I was at an event last week, and the data providers, CNET, or data trainers, they were saying they have 200 vacancies now, and they like people with electrical knowledge to come in and do their vacancy. So it's not necessarily, it depends on what's happening in your local area. In some areas may not have employers that are immediately recruiting, but then other areas do. So it's worth looking a bit wider if that's what you really want to do, or considering alternative but related careers. But yeah, it's a big demand, big industry in demand. Every sector of the economy needs it. COVID as well, changing how people work. So lots of buildings are being changed and reconfigured, and we've never been so busy, and everyone I speak to has never been so busy. So hurry up and get qualified.
Absolutely, yeah, that's encouraging you to the industry. Andy, question for you, two parts of this one. One, you said you've got 22 years of industry and trade experience. So firstly, how have you seen things change on a practical level, and what the role requires now compared to when you first started? And secondly, when you're preparing young people for the world of work in this industry, how do you see it looking in the not too distant future?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, there's, you know, fundamentally, there's not a lot has changed. You know, I mean, all right, there are new devices, new accessories and things like that, but one still has to run a cable from one side of a building to the other. And, you know, as I say, the methods I was taught, you know, as a youngster are still the methods now. So from that side of it, and I don't, you know, unless some kind of brand new technology is developed that really does revolutionise things. I know, you know, there are teams of researchers that are desperately trying to come up with a solution for electricity without wires. And they have made a certain amount of headway with that, but I don't think we're going to see that sort of out in the world for a good few years yet. You know, there's a few things they've still got to iron out. So, you know, at the moment, I mean, we've been in a situation where the kind of basics of the industry have not changed a significant amount. I mean, it's, you know, as Ruth said earlier, the main areas of change at the moment are in the peripheral aspects of things like design, where, you know, I mean, in my day, I trained as a draftsman. You know, these days you'd be using CAD programs and things like that. So, I mean, that, you know, that's, and you know, modelling techniques, you know, and that is one area where all that has changed. But in the on-site side of things, no, not a great deal has changed. As I said, I can't see it changing for a while yet.
Yeah. A question for any of you that want to take this one. What other careers could you go into? So if you're qualified and you've trained as an electrician, what are the other opportunities that might open out for you?
Do you want me to chip in? So
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Our electricians have progressed to all different roles in our business. So we have estimators, so they're involved in deciding how much a job's going to cost from tender documents or from site surveys, or a mixture of the two. We have project managers that control the whole project and liaise with the client. We have contract managers do the commercial aspects. We have surveyors. We have designers. We have 2 full-time designers now, which I think 15 years ago, we never really used to have to produce designs before we did jobs. But now you have to have that level of planning and approval before we do anything. We have health and safety people. We have buyers of materials. So there's a lot of opportunity to either go into, you can do technical expertise, you can go into certain technologies, certain industries. Certain industries need you to have really in-depth technical knowledge, or you might have to have knowledge of hazardous areas as well, like complex. And then you can go all the way to the top. So most directors of companies have been electricians, and they run simple companies, or they're part of a much larger company at a senior role. So you can go all the way to director level. You can be a technical specialist, you can be a commercial specialist, or if you love what you do, you can carry on doing what you do. And we have people that are old, 60 odd that are still doing what they do because that's what they love to do, and we call them metal munchers because they like to put in, fabricate metal. So yeah, you can go as far as you want to go.
Yeah,
definitely.
For sure. Andy, I think part of your teaching, you also look after some of the engineering roles as well, don't you? So what's the
I have done, yeah. I'm not currently, but I have done, yes.
Yeah. So, and are there quite good links? Could this be a pathway into engineering?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be. Oh yeah, yeah. It could be. I mean, you would need either a good few years of experience or further qualifications. But yeah, it can certainly be a step on the way to that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that as a path from level 3 all the way to level 6, which is degree level electrical engineering or building services engineering. So you can do apprenticeships at those levels if you have the right support.
You can, yes.
The right kind of work. So that's funded by the employer or the government. And yeah, you can specialise in all different technical disciplines up to that level from that level 3 electrician.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite a jump between level 3 and level 4. I mean, I've done it, but yeah, why not? You know, if that's how you feel about, or you feel strongly enough about it, then go for it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, fine. I mean, those are the set of questions that I wanted to ask you. We've got a few questions that have come in from the audience. So if you have got anything else you want to ask, you've got maybe about 10 minutes to submit your questions so we can get through these. There's a few that have come in. So the first one, it's for Andy actually, and it is, what was the most dangerous building site that you've had to work on? Anything spring to mind?
Yeah. Yes, it was an old site that had been run by the post office. It was where they used to print the telephone directories, and the company I was working for, which, I mean, we did a bit of engineering and installation work. We were employed to strip the equipment out and basically rewire a good chunk of it. Let's say, I think somewhat generously, that the guys on that site were not the best trained individuals in the world, and there was quite a lot of overhead equipment like gantry cranes used to appreciate that. I mean, printing a telephone directory, which is not something people would know a lot about these days, took a lot of paper. So there were these gantry cranes, and there was a team involved that were supposed to be stripping out these cranes, and they literally had no idea. And all right, it taught us to be vigilant, but they really did nearly kill 3 of the electrical team by dropping gantries on them, or very close to them. Myself being one of them. I mean, I think it highlights the fact that, you know, if you're going to do this, you've got to be trained, not only trained to handle, you know, because as an electrician, you sometimes get called on to get involved in things like that, and you know, so a good bit of health and safety training and things like that is essential. But also, you know, if you're health and safety trained, you know more what to look out for as a hazard on a site, and you can be prepared for it. Yeah, I mean, you know, that was in terms of sort of life-threatening circumstances on a fairly regular basis. That was probably the most dangerous. But you know, I mean, I've been on other sites where, you know, people have blown things up, set fire to things and things like that. It's not so bad these days. You know, fortunately, the level and standard of training has improved a great deal. So, you know, these kinds of things don't happen quite so often. But you know, I mean, you're playing with a, well, I mean, playing, that's a very bad way of putting it, but you know, you're working around electricity, and that's a dangerous thing to do. You know, so training at all levels and all aspects is absolutely essential.
Yeah. No, okay, fair enough. That paints quite the picture. The question, I think this one, well, probably Julie, you're the best to answer this one. So 2 questions really. So firstly, do many schools offer electrical courses in sixth form, or do you have to go to college? I say have to go, people want to go.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any schools in our area that offer electrical installation. And so you do find that it is construction colleges like ours who will pick that up.
Okay. Another question.
Can I just add there though, that
sorry,
if you have A-level maths or science is a good entry point into it. We have lots of people that come to us after A-levels and then they progress quite far quite quickly. So college is great. I'm not knocking college at all. But if you are a bit more academic and you're interested in a career in the industry, you might want to do your A-levels and then train and then go.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Okay. What prior knowledge of electrical installation and wiring would I need before starting a course? So Judy, when you talk to people and they fill out the applications, what's the expectations of how much they actually know about wiring?
So at level 1, there would be no expectation. You know, we're level 1 is a very basic introduction. Level 2, we you know that when we carry out interviews, we do ask if there is any prior knowledge and what the motivation is around the choice. You know, and it's advantageous, but it's not necessary, because that's ultimately why they're coming to college. They will across the 35 weeks be taken through everything that they need to know to start to develop that theoretical and practical competence. So it's not mandatory, but it is advantageous.
Okay, for sure. Prior knowledge, other questions have come in. Prior knowledge. I think we've probably answered all the questions actually that have come in. So kind of last chance, if there's anything else you do want to ask, then put your questions in now. I'm just going to ask, well, I'm going to ask Ruth, I think, because this is the website you shared with me. We always like to provide details of any websites or resources that you might now want to go and have a look at that will give you a little bit more information or access to information about the industry. So electricalcareers.co.uk, Ruth, why might someone want to have a look at that?
Well, this has been developed by the Electrotechnical Skills Partnership, which is made up of industry bodies. So it's the ECA, the JIB, Unite the Union, NET that do the AM2, and Select, the Scottish equivalent to ECA. So they're all not-for-profit organisations that are there for the benefit of the industry. And this is impartial, reliable advice on qualifications. There's careers videos on there. There's advice on things to avoid. Yeah, lots of industry links, lots of good, solid information. It's updated regularly and you can trust it, really. So that's a good resource for students, employers and providers.
Of course. And then, Julie, I'm sure the North Herts College website will provide details of the courses that you run, I assume?
Yeah, all of the courses are on there, all the different levels, entry requirements, you know, really easy access to registering interest and booking interviews. And you know, it's absolutely fine for people to express interest, have an interview just to find out more. That, you know, we're not holding people to turning up in September, but it's another good way to sit, you know, with a tutor, albeit at the moment remotely, and get to sort of have that one-to-one conversation, ask more questions, and find out a little bit about more about what we do.
Of course. So for those of you that live, I guess, within good commutable distance of, is it the Stevenage site or is it the Hitchens site? That
no, we're in Stevenage.
You're
just
in
by
Stevenage.
The train station. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who know where Stevenage is, that's your site. So for those of you that live in other parts of the county, there's Herts Regional College down in Broxbourne. You've got West Herts College out in Watford, and you've got Oaklands College in St Albans. It would be their St Albans campus. So do have a think about which one you might be most likely to be able to get to, and have a look at their website, and there'll be information there on the courses that they operate. Okay, well, just finally then, just want to thank those of you in the audience that have come in and given up your Thursday afternoon to come and watch this webinar. We hope you found it really, really useful and really informative, and it's given you some really good guidance for what your next steps might be to get into the industry. Do have a look at our website, which you can see on your screen now, the HOP website. I had a look on there earlier. I typed in electrical in search words and 57 current vacancies in Hertfordshire came up. So there are plenty of opportunities, and it's a great way of exploring careers in there. If you click on that QR code there, it's going to take you directly to our virtual encounters page on the HOP website, so you can go back. We've been recording these webinars for just over a year now, so there's about 30 odd different industries or different careers that are covered in there. So you may well find there are some other ones in the same format that you want to go back and watch. Finally, I'd like to thank our panelists for giving up their time as well this afternoon to share their knowledge and experience with you. So thanks ever so much to Ruth, to Andy, and to Julie.
Thank you.
And we hope that we will see lots more applications, particularly to North Arts College, and in the future to Ruth's company and other electrical installation companies across the county nearby, and that we've got the next generation of electricians within the county. What a great thing. So thank you very much for your time. Really hope you've enjoyed the session today, and look forward to hearing again from you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.